exercise? 1. What is your favourite sport?
My favourite sport is definitely soccer. I love the feeling of being out there on the field and just running with the wind.
2. Why do you like it so much?
In soccer, the rules are not too complicated, but it's very competitive and takes a lot of skill and talent to play well. I always have fun when I'm playing or watching it on TV.
3. What is the most popular sport in your country?
I think it's basketball. Football also has always been the most popular sport in China. Badminton and ping pong are close behind.
4. Do you like to exercise daily?
No, I don't. I'm awfully lazy. I know that I need to change this habit or I'm afraid it is going to come back and bite me in the butt.
5. How much time do you spend exercising?
Probably 5 or 6 hours a week. I know that I will not make the Olympics at that rate, but then again, sports is not my field.
6. What are the advantages of regular exercise?
There's the obvious advantage that if you regularly exercise, you will stay stronger, more fit and healthier, but you also get better sleep and it helps calm your busy mind.
7. Where do people in China usually exercise?
Young people go to the gym or go to a playground and play basketball. Older people will just go outside their apartments and do Tai Chi.
8. What forms of exercise are most popular in China?
Badminton or ping pong are very popular here in China. Basketball and football are also very popular.
9. Do you think primary school children should have sports classes at school?
I certainly think so, because primary school children have a lot of energy, and if they must remain cooped up at a desk all day, they will not be able to concentrate because they will want to go out and play.
A building in your hometown. Describe an important building in your hometown. You should say what it is, what it looks like, what it is used for, and explain why it is important.
Okay, I will tell you about a building in my hometown, Harbin. In a square in downtown Harbin, there is an old Russian Orthodox church. It's called the Sophia Church, probably named after a Saint Sophia. Anyway, it's in a nice square about 100 meters long and 50 meters wide. The church is about 30 or 40 meters high, not very big. It is made of red brick, and the architecture, as I said before, is in the old Russian style. If you've ever seen pictures of the famous church in Moscow, I cannot remember its name, you'll know what it looks like. Of course, it's smaller and less fancy. There is only one large domed roof, and there are maybe 5 or 6 bell towers. I think there are more pigeons inside than people. They charge a lot of money to see the inside. I never went inside, so I don't know what it looks like. I heard that the church was once going to be demolished, but it was built so strong the workers gave up and left it there. Now it is a very famous tourist attraction, and visitors from around China and the world go to see it and take pictures. I think it's important because it is a historical relic and a little peaceful place in the busiest part of the city. It's also part of the city's image. Harbin is an interesting mixture of both old and new. No matter how many skyscrapers and tall apartment buildings are built, it still has an old and friendly flavour, like a visit to your grandparents' home. I hope the church stays there.
Part 3. Old buildings. 1. How do people in China feel about protecting historic buildings?
I think people are beginning to understand the principle that old buildings are sometimes, I don't say always, treasures to be preserved. Today, most people agree that if a building is an important part of history, then it should be well taken care of. But I think what's missing is the protection of the building's atmosphere. It's not enough to just keep the bricks and mortar from falling apart. You also have to be careful you don't ruin its appeal to visitors by having it overly touristy. The Forbidden City here in Beijing is a good example. It's an amazing place, but it's really boring now, because it has no atmosphere. It's so crowded with sellers, tourists, tour guides and shop vendors that you feel like you are just in a shopping street, not an ancient seat of imperial power.
2. Is it important to preserve old buildings?
Well, sometimes. Some old buildings are good to keep as reminders of the past, as long as they remind people what was right or wrong, not just that they existed. Some old buildings are just wasted space. If the building is a symbol of something good or important to remember about the past, then it should be kept. If it's ugly or in a place where something more useful to the people could be built, and it is not very unique or special, then I would say it's better to get rid of it.
3. Do you think an area can benefit from having an interesting historic attraction?
For sure. Most historically important places are tourist attractions. That can be good as tourism benefits the local economy. Also, attractions can give locals something to be proud of and a reason to live and work there. If the historic building or natural wonder is not a major focus or is too neglected and out of touch with the present, then such historic places lend a kind of dignity to an area. They show the past and present are well integrated, which suggests a vision and plan for the future.
4. What do you think will happen to historic buildings in the future?
I think there will be less of them, but the ones that remain will be well preserved. I think a lot of old buildings will become like little islands of the past in an ocean of a modern world. At least that's what I think will happen here in Beijing. I really don't know how historic buildings in other places around China will hold up. Probably a lot of them will lose their uniqueness and beauty to over-tourism. Others will simply fall apart and no one will even remember what they were or what importance they held. That's what time does.
Housing. 5. Compare old houses and modern houses. Which do people prefer to live in?
That's easy. Nearly everyone wants to live in a new house. Whatever appeal old houses have to the artistic or nostalgic mind, that appeal is not as strong as running water, electricity, central heating, and a well-functioning management. It's mostly the older generation, or my parents' generation, that prefers old houses to new. Among my own generation, if we can, nearly all of us will choose to live in a modern apartment.
6. How has housing in China changed compared to your parents' time?
Housing today means tall apartment buildings if you live in a city. In the countryside, I think it's mostly unchanged. Only the objects inside of the houses are different, but the conveniences widely available in modern urban housing are many. Better electricity, plumbing systems and heating. Many of these were rare before.
7. What changes do you think will occur in the future?
If the current trend continues, residential contractors will keep building the same style of buildings until some creativity enters the business. Modern housing in China is all the same. Tall, identical apartment buildings around a central garden or courtyard, sometimes with a smaller building adjacent or built into the foundation of a few of the taller buildings. It will probably be many years before this trend is reversed. That's too bad, because a lot of what is being built today is wasting space and materials. But I'm hopeful that it will change, even if it takes a while.
8. What factors do people consider when deciding where to live?
Scenery, convenient transport, availability of stores and restaurants, noise or pollution levels nearby. The list goes on and on. Then, of course, there are the actual attributes of the apartment complex they choose, whether it has hot water and central heating, and what ventilation system is used. But in the end, the cost of living is the biggest factor. If one's income is high enough, then he can afford to be choosy about the other factors.
9. How do you think the climate of a place affects the way buildings are constructed? The design.
I don't think climate affects it that much. The outer design of a building can be pretty much the same, whether it's in a temperate, cold or hot climate. It's more the structure that matters. Buildings that are further north are generally built with more insulation and double-pane glass, although if the architect is really good, he will design a building that is in harmony with its surrounding nature and one which makes use of materials and the sun's light to keep the building naturally temperate. This is also good for the environment as it uses less energy to keep it cool or warm.
Describe an important building in your hometown. You should say what it is, what it looks like, what it is used for, and explain why it is important. 1. How do people in China feel about protecting historic buildings? 2. Is it important to preserve old buildings? 3. Do you think an area can benefit from having an interesting historic attraction? 4. What do you think will happen to historic buildings in the future? 5. Compare old houses and modern houses. Which do people prefer to live in? 6. How has housing in China changed compared to your parents' time? 7. What changes do you think will occur in the future? 8. What factors do people consider when deciding where to live? 9. How do you think the climate of a place affects the way buildings are constructed? The design.